Hello, I am back for part 2 of my Selling the OC review. It's going to be episodes 5 to 8 that I got to watch, and I mentioned in part 1 that nothing really dramatic, nothing really firework heavy was happening that made me think that Selling the OC was really going to rival Selling Sunset. But boy, was I wrong, because firework it did come. And all I can say is, Kayla, what are you doing? Why, girl? Why are you chasing married men? What happened? What happened to you? So basically, Polly and Tyler let the other work people know that Kayla tried to make out with Tyler twice. It's not even happened once, it's happened twice, and it may even have been more than an attempt to just make out. So Polly, the person who kind of breaks the tea, is clearly not happy with Kayla over this, especially as she herself explains that for her, it's kind of very PTSD because it's why her husband left. You know, there was a situation with another woman and this kind of thing. So for her, she's just not having it. She doesn't want to hear it. She just thinks this is one of the worst things you can do. And she just sort of is saying, this is why my husband left. And I was thinking, are you sure he didn't leave because you wouldn't stop streaking at office get-togethers? I don't know. But so she's just like, up in arms about it. The rest of them aren't really happy either. Alex Hall also feeling like, you do not cross this line. Brandy just sort of tries to be like diplomatic about it. She's sort of saying, keep it respectful. You don't want to go there in a work situation. It's going to make everybody uncomfortable. People aren't going to, especially a lot of the people in there are happily coupled up, happily married. They don't want to be getting that kind of energy being brought into the office. So yeah, everybody's just kind of a bit like mystified and kind of peed off that Kayla would start doing this kind of thing. Kayla, when she finally comes into the room kind of like the next day, I just have to say, I just want to give her the award for the greatest lack of self-awareness. This girl has no clue why anybody would be upset with her. She just has no idea that open adultery is really not a thing. So she does sort of finally realize that people are miffed with her about what's been going on. And it gets so bad that she even has to openly go to Tyler and try and smooth it out with him, which is like something that most people who sort of flirt inappropriately with somebody else never really do. They never really backtrack and then try and sit down and have an awkward conversation about why they decided it was going to be a good idea to try and make it off with the very, very married guy. So yeah, she does sit down with Tyler. And she also admits to, I can't remember who she admits to. She does sort of say, yeah, I did get a bit drunk and I started flirting with Tyler, so it wasn't so great. The way she makes it sound is kind of more innocent than it turns out that it was. So again, snaky. But I do kind of get what she was, I do think that her coming on to Tyler was probably the most exciting thing that's happened to Tyler in like the last 3 years. But, it was never going to fly. These people like to keep it uptight, and they were not having it. They were not having it. They were like, let's keep it waspy and don't start, let's keep it Christian, and let's not start trying to bring in some bruja, voodoo-esque, live and let live wildness, because we're trying to sell houses, not throw a Mardi Gras. So yeah, they weren't having it basically. And so Kayla does sort of apologize, and even though she does apologize, and they sit down, and he does sort of point out, look, this wasn't the first time, but he does graciously kind of smooth it over with her. And I think she really does realize her mistake, and she really does sort of realize, like, there are lines as boundaries. Yes, everybody in the office flirts a bit. People do like to have a bit of a grab around, and I don't know if it's a grab around, let me not say that, but they definitely do like to keep it, they're a friendly bunch. They're all relatively hot, so they're not gonna like pretend to be nuns and priests. But she was taking liberties a little bit, and it does seem like the alcohols does put her in a certain state. So all's well that kind of ends well, and they all agree to move on from the incident. But yeah, that's a giant firework that got thrown in there real soon in episode 4 and 5. And then at one point these real estate people tell us that they're double ending their freaking deal, which just made me think like these people are as bad as the IT guys, you know, with their floppy disks and their hard disks and their hard drives. I was like, do we really need to double end anything when it comes to selling houses? I mean, why not just back end it, etc., etc. But yeah, I just felt it was a bit, I don't know, it was just a bit gross, you know. I think as well with the Kayla situation, all that happens, like when nobody in the office is talking to you, when everybody refuses to engage with you, you basically are going to be reduced to talking to Rose and Jarvis. So that is what happens to Kayla. She becomes so desperate for the people around her to try and engage with her that she ends up talking to the two other most hated people in the office, which happens to be Jarvis and Rose. So she kind of goes to them to try and get a bit of that good old consolation energy. Alex Hall is next stop on the getting attacked block, and she tries to be a little bit of her dominant self and tries to make Kayla not be the listing agent for a sale, which is supposed to be like her first sale, I think. And the others, especially Jarvis and Rose, kind of call her out on it, and she gets so upset that she ends up leaving the team meeting, kind of storming off a little bit, and then sort of crying in her car. I think it's just because for the first time in her life, somebody dared to question her reign, and she was not happy about it, and she just thought, "F this! I don't need to sit here and take this." But I think it was fair enough. They didn't necessarily need to get involved, so I think she was a bit shocked that anybody was sort of speaking up for somebody else, because that's always a bit of an odd one. But it's always beautiful when people step in and say something when they see something that's not quite right. So I think it was fair of the team members to kind of say something, because she probably would have got away with being a bit over dominant and it wouldn't have been too cool. So yeah, they said their piece, and she was not happy, and then she went off to cry about it, like a good winner does. And then Jarvis and Polly decide to go on a viewing together, which is so surprising because Polly has made it more than clear that she hates Jarvis. So they basically go on this viewing and then spend the whole viewing just shading each other, like the shade, instead of actually showing the client the house. So he thinks he's trying to have a house viewing, but they're just determined to ensure that they outshade each other. At one point, Jarvis sort of mentions to Polly, "Oh, what is this, like modern Mediterranean?" which is kind of a dig at the house being a bit tacky or something. But then Polly comes back with the killers of comebacks and points out to Jarvis that, "Oh, you still have stickers on the bottom of your shoes." Oh, the shade! Oh my days! The shame. So that kind of, for me, that was like mic drop. Like, after you tell someone they still have stickers on the bottom of your shoes, like, you can't really come back from that. But then Jarvis tries to kind of lock Polly in the wine cellar. Like I said, they actually do have a client with them while this is all going on, but you know, they seem to not care because they're too busy having their little WWE knockout. But I also think nobody puts Polly in the wine cellar, and she sort of comes out of it all quite graciously. They then see off the client, sort of say goodbye to him, and then decide to try and have some kind of civil conversation, which just ends up in a big fallout, and then kind of screaming at each other. Well, Polly more than Jarvis, but they both kind of agree that they are not cool, even though they do sort of apologize, but it's one of those apologies that's like, "You're dead to me." So yeah. We then go into episode 7, and I think like Brandy's the one who tries to keep it relatively zen and positive. You know, she knows her mum's sort of having illness issues, but she's always kind of trying to encourage the rest of the team to appreciate their good fortune, well, their mega fortune, and just kind of keep it cool and like, let's not get into these pointless spats. But nobody's clearly listening to her because there's a lot of pointless spats. I also noticed that everyone now has a chess table set up in their home. Literally every reality show I've seen in the last year, everybody seems to have some kind of posh chess table or chess situation going on in the background of the video shot. So I don't believe it. Like, Uno would have been more believable with most of these reality TV people. You're telling me you're all playing chess with like 2 million china plate pieces or whatever those chess parts are made out of. I just don't believe it. Like Connect 4, maybe. If you'd set up a Connect 4 in the background, I would believe most of you. Even Monopoly would be more believable for the majority of these real estate shows. But hey, you want us to believe you know how to play chess? Maybe two of you do. Maybe Jason and Brett, and that's about it. I doubt the rest of you know how. But I can teach you, so that there is that. But yeah, no, there's a lot of chess tabling going on now in reality TV show land, so take that how you will. Maybe you will also purchase a chess set and just have it pointlessly set up in the background of your home whenever people come around. IYKYK. It turns out if somebody sends you a text with the letters IYKYK, it means if you know, you know. So now you know what that's about if somebody sends you that. I do miss YOLO, I have to say. I don't think it's coming back. I think it would be very cringe to try and bring it back, but I do miss that word, that situation, because I thought it summed up a lot about modern millennial life. And then we get to find out that the buyer, his name is Doug, by the way, but the buyer that Alex Hall and Kayla are sort of dealing with their co-listing, he's not a fan of Alex Hall. Shock horror. I kind of am a fan of Alex Hall, to be honest, but I can get why somebody might find her a bit off-putting. Like if she was selling your house, she definitely can come across a bit, like as the man says, aggressive and like a car salesman. So he wasn't appreciating that vibe. But I mean, I feel like those are the qualities you need in somebody who's going to sell your $20 million house. So is it the worst thing that she's going to get the job done? Probably not, but I'm definitely more of a fan of hers than Doug was. So he basically is like, I don't want to deal with her. I'm not happy about it. I find her very off-putting. So Kayla kind of has to like step over or try and shield those two from each other. And Alex Hall isn't even aware that he's like finding her a giant pain in the A. So you know those situations when like somebody thinks they're like the star of the office, but like the person who's dealing with them, their client, is like, get this woman away from me. So yeah, a little bit hilarious. Tyler has this like very beautiful listing, a lot of white marble situation going on with his house. And I feel like after I saw his listing, I really started to understand the OC. Like it just made a lot more sense to me. So that is the listing that will help you understand the OC vibe. So do check that out. Gio decides to host a poker night or a casino night, whichever one you want to call it. And everybody arrives. There's a lot of sparkle. There's sparkle everywhere, as every good casino night does have. Everyone's looking very beautiful. It's very glitter. It's very Vegas. Brandy's pink elbow length gloves are a whole thing for me. I mean, she was like, it was very Morticia Addams meets Audrey Hepburn. It was like vampy but classic. It was fresh. I loved it. And then Alex Hall attends the casino night along with everybody else from the office, and she makes it a point to not snub anybody. So in episodes 1 to 4, there was a bit of a situation with Gio's wife where apparently she was telling Gio that she was snubbed by Alex Hall, and Gio sort of had some very, at first pleasant, but then very angry words with Alex about it. And she was like, I didn't do it. But there was definitely a bit of a question mark. What, did she snub or didn't she snub? So she makes sure to have a full-on natural civil interaction with the so-called snubbed wife, just to ensure that there is no snubbing going on. But then in a hilarious twist, Gio's wife, the apparently snubbed person, the formerly snubbed person, leans over to tell Alexandra Rose, oh, you're my favorite Alex. Who is being snubbed now? You know, that's a snubbing. Like, you're my favorite Alex? Woohoo! So shots fired. Ching, ching, ching. We're going to see what happens in season 2. Does Alex Hall come back for an extreme snubbing, or does she just let it go? Just let it go. It's not worth it. Because fuck, that first snubbing really caused a lot of ruffled feathers and barbed words at the beach party that should have been tranquil, but instead was just a lot of words about being snubbed or not being snubbed, or did she snub her, and did you snub her, and who's being snubbed now? So, I mean, Gio's wife, sneaky. She got her own snubbing in, and yeah, that happened. But that's just the beginning of that casino night, because the casino night is like where the stuff went down. Like, that was the big big situation. So part of what went wrong with Casino Night is that Polly sort of continued to remind us how much she hates Jarvis, at one point telling us that Jarvis is the biggest dick she's ever met. So Polly versus Jarvis is just a thing. But at this point, it's very clear that pretty much everybody on staff hates Jarvis and Rose. So, it's kind of hard to say it's Polly particularly, because they all just sort of seem to be like, F those two. And then, just to make it beyond awkward, Brandy, who herself is normally kind of like the peacemaker a little bit, starts mouthing off about how awful Rose and Jarvis are. And they're literally, Rose is standing next to her when she starts doing this. So Brandy doesn't realize this, but everybody else does. And they're sort of trying to like show her to like stop talking, stop saying things. It was just bad. It was bad. Like, it was just bad to watch. I mean, it was just like all the rules, like all the things people tell you about what not to do when it comes to trying to talk about somebody. She just like went right past that. I mean, like, the Good Girl's Guide to Bitching About Your Work Colleague, I'm pretty sure on page number 1 it says, make sure the person isn't there when you start mouthing off about them. So yeah, complete fail on Brandy's part, because Rose was standing there and, rightly so, she's like, what? Like, what is this about? Why are you talking about me? And it's just explosion at the works do. Like, it just went mental. Like, walls were melting down, people were crying, fiancés were being insulted, drinks were being thrown, like everything just switched. Like, the energy just went and like, yeah, there was no coming back after that. Nobody was gonna be like, let's hug it out. Like, it just went into like meltdown, and people started like trying to hash out everything with each other. They were arguing. Different groups were like breaking off and trying to have conversations about, you said this and you said that, and don't call me honey, and honey this and honey that. And somebody was saying, you're rubbing your stink on everything in the office. Like, it was extreme. And from all of that, I just seemed to arrive at the point where I thought, maybe champagne and opinions don't mix, because I feel like a lot of this wouldn't have happened if people had stopped at one glass. So there was a lot of things being thrown and jabs being thrown and insults being thrown. Polly especially came out in true British style and seemed to drop every single English swear word she could find. I mean, she was telling us that, she used dick, she used knob, she used the C word. She said that Jarvis was the most condescending. Condescending, we always have to use that when you're British. She apparently called her a stuck-up bitch. I mean, she even finished with the finger. So, I mean, there was every single insult getting thrown at these people. And then, as well, there was one thing that I thought was very, very new to me, which is that you can now tell people's fiancés that you met 2 minutes ago, you can just tell them that their partners suck. So I didn't know that was a thing. I thought you were supposed to wait until they left the room or the party, and then you just laughed about how awful their fiancé was. But now you can just tell them, even though you don't know them. So yeah, that also was like huge, because obviously Jarvis was like, WTF, like, why are you going to go talk to my fiance who you don't even know and say these quite extreme things. So yeah, that was episode 7. By the time we got to episode 8, I definitely felt that Jarvis and Rose probably took the most heat this season. Like, these girls took a bunch of heat. Gio got pasted a little bit, and Kayla got some whiplash in there as well. So those are the sort of 4 people that really had to see some sparks flying this season their direction. We'll see if it continues to be that way for season 2. A skinny margarita, I found out, is just when you use orange juice instead of orange liqueur and stevia or some kind of sugar substitute instead of the sugar. So it basically just sounds like a retirement home version of a margarita. So I don't know why you do that to yourself, but there you go. And then Alex Hall and Kayla decide to hash out their weird vibes. So I feel like because of all the epic meltdown of the whole casino night, that probably Alex Hall kind of thinks, I'm going to get over my tears and talk to Kayla about the listing situation. And so they figure out who's going to be who on the listing. And they both kind of agree. Like Kayla sort of thinks, how do I let her know that the seller kind of hates her? I don't think it fully comes up, but they do both agree that the guy's kind of a pain in the A anyway. So, they kind of bond over that, because I think they both realize he probably hates her because he doesn't realize that he's a bit of a douche. But hey, as long as this house gets sold, who cares, right? So they have a team meeting, and Austin speaks for like the first time in the whole series, just to tell us that he made a sale. So nothing that eventful, but signs of life. We finally realized he actually can speak, and he does. And then Alex decides that she's going to leave the co-listing. So she decides she's no longer going to be on the ticket with Kayla because, the situation's just become too stressful and the guy's so annoying, etc., etc., etc. They then go on to have a boat party, which I think is a horrible idea. I feel like getting on a boat when you're on a reality TV show is always a bad idea. You've got no way to get off if shit hits the fan. And I feel like the only people allowed on a boat on reality TV are like the cast of Below Deck. Everybody else, just when they tell you you're going to have a boat party, just say no thanks or find some excuse why you can't go. So Gio gets on the boat, and he does say, he does mention that it's a relief to be a guest, not the host this time. So I'm very sure that he's having PTSD from the casino night that he thought he was going to host, and it was going to be this joyous coming together, and bonds, wounds were going to be healed between the office staff. And instead, all his work colleagues kind of fell out and started throwing drinks at each other. So probably not how he saw it going. So he's relieved that he gets to just sit back this time and not have to manage all the energy. They all do get on the boat, and like I said, I do think it was a bad idea. And at first it does start off and it's all very lush and beautiful and love boaty, and everyone's kind of having a ball, and then all of a sudden our favorite villains, the ones they all love to hate, Jarvis and Rose, are back in there into another fight with everybody else. It's another pylon. It's all very intense. It's all a bit grim, to be honest. And I just think the bad vibes could do with going, because everyone's being a bit off with each other. So hopefully by season 2 they would have hashed these things out and they'll be in a healthier space. I don't know. I mean, for Jarvis and Rose, right, I just feel that they took a lot of heat, but actually they're kind of friendship goals, because like they were just exchanging wedding vows all season. Like between each other, they're very ride or die. They stuck up for each other. They try to just rise above it all, because for whatever reason, everyone's kind of a little bit off put by them. But to be fair, they're the ones who actually sell probably the most on there. They're two of the top sellers from everything I have come to understand. So I don't think they need to worry too much. Maybe people will go less on them this season, and some of the other cast members will catch some heat instead. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that happened in episodes 5 to 8. Let's see if those tables turn next season, and let's see who ends up being the most put upon colleagues in season 2. But yeah, fairly eventful second part for me, and I will be watching season 2 to see what happens. But I mean, like, Selling Sunset is my baby, so that's kind of where my head's mainly at. But Selling the OC was an interesting addition, and we will see what happens in season 2. So see you then. Bye.